Hello class, my name is Jonathan Machado and this is Group 5's presentation. The case study our group covered was Chapter 6 Selected Cases, Managing Change, Action Planning for the Velo V project in Lyon, France. This case study explains how the city of Lyon, France planned a major change in urban transportation by launching a self-service bike sharing company called Velo V. Lyon was already expanding its public transportation system with rail, metro, and buses, but the city officials still wanted a better way for people to make short trips and connect easily between transit stops and where they actually needed to go. Lyon partnered with the company JC Deschamps, which would manage the program by owning and maintaining the bicycles and stations and funding service mainly through advertising. The system was designed so a person could pick up a bike at a station near a metro stop, a business district, or a public venue, ride to another part of the city, and return the bike to a different station. The program was meant to run for 24 hours a day and expand quickly over several years by adding more bikes and stations. It was presented as a bold shift in how urban community thinks about transportation because bicycle use in Lyon was very low at the time. So success was required not only for new infrastructure, but also a real change in daily habits and attitudes towards commuting and mobility. The trigger for change was the growing set of urban problems Lyon was experiencing as it became larger and more economically active. Pollution, overcrowding, and frequent traffic jams made daily life and movement throughout the city more difficult, especially in the commercial center where congestion was most visible. City leaders saw that these problems were not just annoying, but costly, because traffic slows business activity, makes commuting less predictable, and lowers quality of life. They also recognize that Lyon lagged behind other similarly sized cities in how easily residents could access public transportation, which increased pressure to move mobility options in the way that reach more people. Even after the city expanded its public transportation system, leaders still felt the need for an additional approach which would reduce car dependence and make short trips easier. They wanted something that could help people move between metro stops, shopping areas, workplaces, and public venues without defaulting to a car. They were willing to consider a bigger, more visible change that could influence everyday travel habits, and that is why the city sought new ideas and asked JC Deschamps for input, which directly led to the proposal of self-service bike exchange networks as the next step in Lyon's effort to cut congestion and improve movement around the city.
Hi, Professor. My name is Valentina Wedekin. I have question number 3. That is, how was the information and the feedback gathered in this case? So, in Develop 5 case, the information and feedback were gathered through several interconnected channels before and during the project's development. First, the initiative was built on prior experimentation and pilot testing that it was conducted by JC Decaux in other European cities, including Vienna, Cordoba, and Gijón. These earlier trials of self-service bicycle programs, they not just provided operational data, they also user behavior insights and financial feasibility information that inform the proposal for Lyon. This means that the company relied on experience-based learning and benchmarking from comparable urban environments. So, second, I think that we consider that the feedback was gathered through collaboration between the city government and JC Dots. The city of Lyon worked closely with JC Dots, regional management and development, and the office assessed infrastructure needs. Budget estimate is like 2 million euros annually. Project usage levels. So this partnership allowed decision makers to exchange technical, financial, and logistical information before their launch. Third, we think that the project was publicly introduced by the major during the Day Without a Car festival, which functioned as a symbolic and public communication platform. Such events likely provide informal public reaction and visibility, helping leaders not just to gauge community sentiment. But however, the case also is highlighting that formal stakeholder consultation was limited. The president of the local non-governmental transportation union expressed some dissatisfaction due to the insufficient dialogue with concerned organizations. This suggested that while information was gathered internally from pilot projects, structure, stakeholder feedback mechanisms, such as public forums, transportation union consultations, they were not fully utilized. So, a brief summary of what I just said: information and feedback for this case were gathered primarily through prior pilot programs in other European cities. They were learning from the experimentation. There was a strategic collaboration between Lyon's government and JCDecaux, and public presentation and early operational rollout. And at the same time, the case is also indicating a gap in inclusive stakeholder engagement, and particularly with transportation advocacy groups. So this is what we think. I'll pass to the next question. Thank you.
So the question says, what other assessment methods would we recommend? Now, in addition to what was already said in the case, there are a couple other assessment methods that we think would strengthen the project. First and foremost, we want to do a stakeholder analysis. Even though the project already had political support, the case mentioned some groups, like the Transportation Union, that felt left out of the conversation. So we want to clearly identify who supports the change, who might resist it, who has the influence, and in that way we can address the concerns before they turn into major pushback or any resistance. Secondly, we want to gather the broader community's feedback through surveys. So at the time, fewer than 3% of people in Lyon were actually using the bikes. So that tells us that there might have been maybe something cultural or maybe a safety concern. So understanding why people weren't biking would help us design the program in a way that would encourage more people to adopt the program. Additionally, we want to recommend focus groups on commuters, on business owners, and even transportation employees. So this will allow like a space to have an honest discussion and give people a voice in the whole process of change. And then finally, we want to create clear evaluation metrics for the pilot phase. So we want to look at usage rates, maintenance costs, overall satisfaction, vandalism rates. We want to look at the theft rates even. So that way our decisions are based on real data and not just us assuming. Alright, so question 5 says, what next steps will we take to reinforce the change that we recommend? So to make sure the Vevlog project actually stays and lasts, we want to create a very clear communication plan. So communication is going to be key, since the city views this project as a very radical shift in how the city thinks about transportation. We need the city to be very consistent about explaining the benefits. So that would look like explaining how it reduces traffic, explaining the environmental impact, and just the overall convenience the program brings. Secondly, we want to manage ongoing stakeholder involvement. So even after the launch, we want to continue to engage with our stakeholders, especially with groups who already felt excluded. Building trust and rebuilding trust through regular updates, such as meetings, forums, is going to be very important. We also want to highlight our very early successes and wins. So, for example, if we have a station that has very high usage numbers, or we see traffic in an area where our bikes are being used decreases like a lot, we want to highlight those publicly, whether it's in the news, social media, and everything. It's just going to continue to build momentum. Additionally, we want to offer incentives, so discounting memberships or usage to students, to workers, even to seniors. It could help adopt the program, especially in a city where biking really wasn't common. And then lastly, the change has to become part of the long-term city planning. So that means aligning it with the city's infrastructure improvements, the safety measures, and the transportation policies, which when it becomes part of the system, it's more likely to stick than any other regular project. So thank you again for this opportunity, and I'm going to pass it on to my classmate.
Hello, my name is Isaiah Ragland. As consultants continue working with the Velo V project in Lyon, we would take into using artificial intelligence as a support tool to help strengthen decision making, diagnosis, and planning. By using AI, we'll be able to analyze large amounts of stockholder of stakeholder feedback, ranging from employee feedback to partner communications and public reactions. Additionally, we can use it to analyze partner communications, such as emotional responses to change, identifying common concerns, and resistance patterns. All of this will help us develop a more targeted action plan that would directly address the stakeholders' needs instead of relying on assumptions and limited data. Additionally, we would use AI to support action planning and communication during implementation. Using AI will allow us to assess potential risk, anticipate operational challenges before they escalate, and evaluate different rollout scenarios. We can also ensure that communication remains clear and consistent by using AI to assist in drafting clear change messages for employees, managers, and external partners. Strong communication is vital towards building commitment and reducing uncertainty, and it's especially important on large scale change initiatives such as Velo V. Finally, we can use AI to help monitor progress and support ongoing adjustments through the change process. We can track indicators such as employee sentiment, performance trends, and service usage to help identify early warning signs of adoption issues or resistance. This allows us to recommend timely adjustments towards communication styles, leadership involvement, and training. Overall, we can use AI as a way to enable adaptive change management. This enhances our consulting effectiveness while ensuring that human judgment and stakeholder engagement remain central throughout the process.